Welcome everybody to the SIPA 4+1 pathway information session for spring of 2023. Excited you could all be here at a busy time in the semester. I'm Christine Valenza-Shin. I am the interim executive director for Beyond Barnard, and I'll tell you a little bit more about our role in the pathway program shortly. Want to give a quick second for the other folks in the room to introduce themselves so you know who's going to be speaking to you today. So yeah, just a quick introduction and then I'll circle back to everybody for their portion of the presentation. So Professor Ananat.
Hi, I'm Liz Ananat, and I am the faculty advisor at Barnard for the SIPA 4+1.
And Suya.
Hi, everybody. I'm Suya Yi. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the Associate Dean for Student Affairs in the Office of Student Affairs at SIPA, and I'm the primary SIPA advisor for students in the 4+1.
Desmond.
Hi, I'm Desmond Byrne. I'm an assistant dean here in the SIPA Office of Student Affairs. And at the moment, I also work with our Columbia College and our General Studies 5-year students. And I'm also a SIPA graduate. And so I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about SIPA or the 5-year program as well.
Excellent. And we also have with us a current SIPA pathway student, Wes, if you want to take a second and say hello.
Hi, I'm Wes. I'm in my end of my first year at SIPA / last year at Barnard, and I'm here to answer any questions that you have. I might drop my email in the chat if you just want to email me questions. I'm totally open to that, but looking forward to speaking with all of you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So as you can tell right from the start, that this is a joint effort, a joint advising effort, a joint support effort. And so I'll just take a couple minutes to talk a little bit about Beyond Barnard's role. We are here in an advisory capacity at sort of two key times in the process. One, for first years and sophomores and primarily first years and sophomores who are thinking about the pathway, have general questions, want to talk a little bit about how it fits into future career plans, how it would fit into your time at Barnard and your interests there. So we're always happy to have that sort of preliminary conversation, why you're interested potentially in the program and what questions you might have in a general sense. And then from there, we often pass students on to Professor Ananat for more specific questions, particularly about the piece that we don't have a strong role in, which is the academic piece and sort of planning out your academic calendar. So we can certainly talk about the general process of that, but then we sort of hand off. But we then come back into the picture, especially for juniors who are applying to the program and are happy to support the application process in a number of ways. So as you're writing your essays, figuring out who to ask for references, and just sort of general questions about how you're presenting yourself through the application process. That's where we play an advising role. Throughout all of this, Beyond Barnard acts as the sort of administrative home and liaison for all of the 4+1 pathways. So it's our job to bring together the faculty advisors, the advisors and faculty and administrators on the Columbia side of the pathways. And then we also work with our student cohorts when they're in year 4, their final year at Barnard, and then somewhat in year 5 when they're full-time at SIPA to hear how you're all doing, track your progress, answer questions. So that's our role, and you are welcome to follow up with myself or any of our Beyond Barnard advisors by making an appointment in Handshake. So when we'll also be following up with the recording from today's session and a couple of handouts as well. So again, welcome everybody. And now I'll turn things back over to Professor Ananat.
So as Dean Shin explained, I am the person to talk to about planning your academics. So figuring out how to position yourself to successfully complete your degree at Barnard at the same time that you academically prepare to be a strong applicant at SIPA. And it's a challenging thing to do, right? So it benefits from as early planning as possible. but it also is something that can be doable depending on your circumstances. But if you start thinking about it, relatively late, so if you are finishing up your sophomore year now, it's not too late to be figuring out how to do this. And I am here to talk to you about what classes you need to be taking in order to complete your major requirements, in order to complete your general education requirements at Barnard, and in order to position yourself to be successful at SIPA. That is something, of course, I always will do in conjunction with the conversations that you have with your major advisor, and in conjunction with the conversations that you may have with folks at SIPA. We want to make sure all the boxes are checked and that there are no unpleasant surprises when you're partway through the process. And so earlier is always better, but prior to February of your junior year, it's never too late to take a look and see if it's something we can make happen. And that is what I'm here for. And I will drop the sign up link for my office hours in the chat later in the conversation.
Excellent. And I'll just make one other point here that Professor Ananat and I collaborate. In that junior year, we have a form, I'll drop the link in a moment, that you fill out. Probably it's best to start filling it out in the fall of your junior year, where you project, it gives you an opportunity to sort of total up everything you've done at Barnard so far, how you plan to finish your Barnard degree, and then how you plan to fit in the SIPA requirements, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So. Great, so now I will turn things over to Dean Yee.
Thank you. So we're going to share, let me start sharing now. Are you seeing my screen? Yes,
Yeah.
okay, great. So we have a short presentation prepared, which is an overview of SIPA, the school, the program, the degree program, and a little bit more about the student life at the school. And we'll go through this. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And I'll ask my colleague, Dean Byrne, to maybe monitor that chat. There may also be questions for Wes to answer there too. And then at the end of the presentation, Wes will speak a little bit about their experience, and then we'll open it up for questions. So the SIPA Barnard 4+1 dual degree program, which I've heard is one of the oldest 4+1 pairings. Am I right about that, Dean Shin? So I'm seeing a nod, yes. So that's a little bit of, that's something that we take great pride in at SIPA, our longstanding partnership with Barnard through this 4+1 program. So the first thing that I wanted to mention to you all is that SIPA is currently undergoing what we call SIPA 2.0 and reorganizing itself and its curriculum around what our new dean has described as the 5 global policy challenges. These are geopolitical stability, democratic resilience, climate and sustainable development, inclusive prosperity and microeconomic stability, and technology and innovation. And so what you will see in the next few years is the curriculum, the capstones, and other parts of our academics reorganizing to kind of align with these global policy challenges. And so we're going to hear directly from our dean about what these are. Are you all able to hear the audio of the video? Were you able to?
I do not hear the audio.
Okay, 1 second.
That what had happened in the 1930s was something that
yes?
we
Okay,
must
great.
do everything in our power not to experience again. ever. I don't think it would be an exaggeration to say that the world is in crisis. And I think that SIPA can make a huge impact on 5 main challenges the world is facing around energy, climate policy, around geopolitics and international security policy, around technology innovation and policy, inequality in the politics of redistribution, and democratic governance and resilience. The idea is to figure out how can we as a community of scholars work as a team to really help solve those 5 biggest challenges the world is facing and be able to do the research using the most cutting-edge tools we can to understand those problems, to offer solutions, to train the students to be able to be out there in the world, advocating for better practices, thinking through the complexity of the problems. We are very fortunate to be a policy school, not just in New York City, but a policy school that is part of an amazing institution, an Ivy League top research institution, that the orientation of Columbia is also very global. And at this moment, the world needs schools, universities, policy schools in universities to play a leading role in studying those problems, those challenges, and having a sense of purpose, urgency, and an understanding of the complexity of the problem. This is a big moment for policy school, and we have to lead the way. We just have to.
Okay, so as I said, it's a really exciting moment for the school. Hopefully you can all hear me. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I can no longer see the participants, so please please let me know. Okay, thanks, Desmond. So as we get started, we have one more video that we wanted to show you, which is a new video we just produced about the experience. So here we go.
Five-year dual degree program between Barnard and I'm Hannah Katz, and I am a student in the 5-year dual degree program between Barnard and SIPA. From a young age, I knew that I had a passion for international affairs, for meeting people from all around the world, and for representing Israel on the global stage. At Barnard College, I studied political science, and it was very clear to me in order to work in government, in order to leave New York City and go off into far places, that I needed to get my master's degree. The 5-year program at SIPA is a dual degree program between the undergraduate schools at Columbia and SIPA. SIPA is the #1 public policy school in the US. And having already been in the Columbia system, it was a natural transition and really crucial stepping stone for me to be able to take all of the knowledge and skills that I've learned at Barnard and to take that to SIPA. SIPA takes those skills and helps hone them into something that is practical, into something that is action-based. With all the policy memos that we have to write, all the presentations that we have to give, having to solve real-world problems in real time, that quite frankly is something that will help anyone in any career, whether that be in government or in the private sector. SIPA students come from all different backgrounds with different life experiences, with different points of view, but we all have this common goal of having a positive global impact. I feel incredibly empowered to face the critical issues that I'm planning on working in post-graduation, and I think that that empowerment really came from coming from Barnard and into SIPA. Being able to graduate in 5 years, which is 1 extra year on top of the 4 years of undergrad, you are gaining so much more than just that 1 year. So for me personally, the 5-year program was able to complement my desire to get an incredible education, meet incredible people, and then go out in the world and create that positive impact that I knew that I always wanted to have.
So I hope you enjoyed those 2 videos. Okay, well, moving along, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Why Columbia SIPA? So the school, SIPA. Our faculty is made up of 70 full-time and 200 plus adjunct practitioners and scholars. SIPA has a unique mix of full-time tenured faculty and adjuncts and what we also call professors of practice. And this unique blend of academics and policy practitioners just creates a really rich learning environment for students and allows practice-centered solutions for real-world problems. SIPA has a really extensive alumni network. Sorry, one second. We have over 24,000 alumni in 160 countries around the world. This is just a selection of some of our notable alums. Dean Byrne and I really struggled with who to feature here. We had hundreds of really notable alums to feature here, and we just updated this slide with some of our new alums. And here's a fact sheet about our alumni network and about the school. 92% post-grad employment, 24,000 alumni, which I already mentioned, 160 countries represented, 50 plus languages spoken at SIPA, and 8 programs designed to prepare you for success. Now, if you're interested in SIPA, you're probably thinking about career opportunities and your next step after graduation. At SIPA, you have lifelong access to professional assistance with resumes, cover letters, interviewing skills, networking. We do annual conference to Washington, D.C., host job fairs, and also connect you with alums in New York and internationally. Our careers office also launches professional development courses, which are required for SIPA students. One which is mandatory, and then we have a big list of electives. SIPA often hosts world leaders. Here's a photo of Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, who was SIPA's commencement speaker last year. She gave an incredible speech, inspiring speech to our graduating students. This year, Maria Ressa, a journalist from the Philippines, Nobel Prize winner, is speaking at SIPA. We do have world leaders, former world leaders teaching at SIPA and also speaking often in our community. So Columbia University, which you're already a part of, you get to stay here and take advantage of all that the university has to offer. Continue taking advantage of the vast resources at the school and kind of piggyback on your familiarity with the school to leverage that into your time at SIPA. We noticed that incoming students to SIPA often spend a full semester getting adjusted to the school. So that's one advantage that the 4+1 and 5-year students have. Okay, so we do want to give a brief overview of the MIA and MPA degree curriculum. It's a lot of credits. It's a 54 credit degree, and there are quite a number of requirements. It's a complicated program, but you do have dedicated advisors, both in the Office of Student Affairs and also in your academic program to help guide you through. So this is really just an overview. We go into more detail once you're accepted to the program and committed to the program. There is pretty intensive advising for our students. But the MIA, the full-time MIA and MPA degree, as I said, is 54 credits, and it's a combination of a core curriculum, a concentration, and a specialization, and then there is some space for electives. What we require in your 4th year at Barnard, which is also your 1st year at SIPA, is to complete up to 24 credits that will count towards both Barnard and SIPA. Bringing in 24 credits means that your 5th year in residence at SIPA, you have 30 to 36 credits remaining, which breaks down to 15 to 18 credits per semester, which is a doable workload, although we lean more heavily towards recommending the 30 credit, the 15 and 15 divide. So, and your first year at SIPA / your fourth year at Barnard is mostly spent completing core requirements and required courses for your concentration and specialization. So we have 6 concentrations to choose from. Each of them have the same number of requirements, 15 credits. The EPD, the Economic Political Development concentration, also requires a foreign language, as does the MIA degree. But these are our 6 concentrations: economic and political development, energy and environment, human rights and humanitarian policy, international finance and economic policy, international security policy, and urban and social policy. For some of our concentrations, when paired with the data analytics specialization, those become STEM tracks. For example, economic and political development, energy and environment, and international finance and economic policy, when paired with data analytics and quantitative analysis, those become STEM tracks. And these are our specializations. The first one is the one I just mentioned, data analytics and quantitative analysis, gender and public policy, international conflict resolution, international organization and UN studies, leadership, innovation and design, which is formerly known as management, technology, media and communications, and regional and foreign language specializations. Most students do 1 concentration and 1 specialization. That is required, but students can also do 2 specializations because with some restrictions, we do allow double counting between courses, which means that 1 course can count twice in 2 different requirements. And then we also have regional specializations for these regions, and those can be completed through regional coursework, often hosted through our institutes, and they can also be completed through advanced foreign language study. We have an incredibly robust capstone program where students in their final semester will work with a client to create a deliverable for that client. It often involves international travel. And we give commencement awards for the top capstone projects, and often see these capstone projects evolving into future work for students. So I'm not going to go through the whole list, and the list changes every year. Students are asked to weigh in on their interest. Students rank their capstone preferences and then are placed into capstones. And usually the capstone teams are between 4 and 6 students. And so one of the big advantages to this program is getting to stay in New York City. And you're already familiar with the city. Well, some of you may be freshmen and may be new to the city, but the city has a lot to offer, and it's a great advantage of staying at SIPA. We have started a new program at SIPA called Welcome to New York. Oh, did you see Dean Byrne there, over there in the corner? We've started a new program called Welcome to New York, which includes discounts to Broadway shows. We actually just started selling tickets to Hamilton yesterday, and they sold out within seconds. These are massively discounted Broadway show tickets. We do tours at some important landmarks in the city, and it's all a way of getting acclimated to the city and helping students get kind of launched into all the city has to offer. So the students. The SIPA student population, this is at a glance. 1,471 students at SIPA, 88 different countries. In the current student populations, this is just a snapshot. And it looks like our alumni access has increased from 24,000 to 25,000, 60.5% international, and the average age is 28. Student life at SIPA, well, we can ask Wes for their opinion on this, but it's very vibrant student community, very active. We have over 35 student organizations. I think we're actually over 40 at this point, which is in part led by the Office of Student Affairs in partnership with SIPASA, which is the SIPA Student Association. And our student life offerings include managing and assisting those student organizations, but also hosting our own speakers, forums, lunch events, wellness activities, study breaks, academic events, field trips, and professional events and networking. So when you start at SIPA, you will be part of what's called a SIPLS group. These are orientation groups, and these are important communities as you get started. Usually we try to put all of the 4+1 students into one SIPLS group as a cohort, and you're also led by a 5th year 4+1 student. And these are important peer support groups that kind of follow you through your first year. And these are the peer advisors with branded shirts. One of the really great series that we have going, actually, I think it's happening this Thursday, is SIPA Speaks, a student speaker series where we invite students to present on their research. Here's a selection of some of our SIPA Speaks presentations that we've offered in the past. And so this is an open invitation for students to apply to speak. And then there's a Q&A with lunch. And it's a pretty nice professional development opportunity for our students. This is just one of the examples of the wellness final study break activities we do annually. We have, I think they're, I don't know what they're support dogs that come to the school and are available for students to pet and engage with to help relieve stress, take a break from studying. And then this is a photo from our annual student organization fair called SIPA Fest. And that's where that happens early in the fall semester, where we have a huge fair on Ansel Plaza for the student organizations to talk about their work, their activities, and hopefully recruit new students to join. So as you might imagine, SIPA hosts numerous guest speakers and forums, and this area of SIPA is actually, it's growing exponentially. In fact, we just had a spotlight interview with Nancy Pelosi and Secretary Hillary Clinton. I think that was 2 weeks ago, and was live streamed and viewed by hundreds of thousands of people. And so there's a lot of guest speakers, and with the new appointment of Secretary Clinton as a professor of practice at SIPA, we expect high-level speakers to continue to be coming to SIPA to speak, and for that to and for students to always have some engagement opportunity with that. I should note that the new president of Columbia is also appointed as a professor at SIPA. And so these are just some photos that we have of different field trips, and these are, we do a headshot event every year for our graduating students, a class photo, and then before you know it, graduation. So that's basically the end of the presentation. A couple things to note. Besides saving time and saving money, there are some perks to the program in terms of the actual application process. There's no application fee, there's no deposit required, and we don't require GRE or GMATs exams. So thank you very much for your attention. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Wes to maybe say a few words about their experience if you're still here, Wes.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Thanks
didn't
everyone
drop
for
out,
listening to that. And please, Wes, if you have anything to add, thank you.
I mean, for reference, I'm a Barnard senior. I majored in political science. I sort of came into the program relatively early knowing that I wanted to do it. I didn't come to Barnard specifically for the 4+1 program, but I went to an info session pretty early on in my academic career and decided that that's the path I wanted to go on. So I started planning pretty early, not absurdly early, because I was kind of a late bloomer in terms of the starting my political science requirements. So I didn't start filling those boxes until my sophomore year, when a lot of people started doing their major requirements there first. So you can completely start your major your sophomore year and still be able to do all the credit requirements for SIPA. It's like not an issue. At SIPA, I'm concentrating in energy and environment policy, which I love. My cohort is awesome. I guess the only thing that I would add that I feel like SIPA doesn't underscore enough is how much group collaboration you find yourself doing in a lot of the classes, and how that, at least for me personally, I find that really helpful, because coming out of Barnard, you're sort of this individual writing papers all the time, and you go out into the real world, and especially in the public policy and government world, there's really no way to work alone. You're going to have to work with people. So I feel like the way that SIPA forces you to work with people throughout your entire career is actually really useful. So I wouldn't say that if you're like very, very, very against group work, it's necessarily a good fit, because you will absolutely be in a group setting here, which I love, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. Like, I have been involved in a major group project, at least one or two, pretty much every semester I've been here, which has been great, but I think it's worth noting. But that's the only thing that I would particularly add in terms of like academics.
Well, thank you, everybody, for that, for the overview. And I think we've got plenty of time now to turn things, open things up for Q&A. As I said earlier, you're welcome to come off camera and or mute to ask your question, but you also can drop it into the chat if you would like. So have at it. Let any of us know if you've got questions. Elizabeth Yee has her hand up. Go ahead.
I just had a quick question on the economics requirement of SIPA. I've heard from a few people that SIPA has quite a few classes embedded that are like that force you to do macro and micro. In terms of choosing a minor at Barnard, should we be preparing possibly to, look into some econ classes?
I can answer that and invite Dean Byrne to chime in if I missed anything, but both the MIA and MPA degrees have an econ requirement, a micro econ course and then macro, and also there is a Quant 1/statistics requirement. So those three courses are what we call like the quant sequence of required courses. There are two levels for the economics courses. There's a higher level version of the econ sequence that I think includes more calculus, and then there's another level that doesn't. So depending on what your concentration or your specialization are, some of them require the higher level version. We don't require that you've taken economics classes in order to apply. However, these are requirements at SIPA, and so you should have been exposed to these to this coursework in order to really gauge your preparedness to do the SIPA degree. I think I didn't mention this, but we don't have a specific major requirement for Barnard in order to apply to SIPA. You can come from any major, but students without any experience in these fields will likely struggle at SIPA and with our core curriculum.
Don't let that entirely deter you. I mean, I was a political science major and had absolutely no economics experience coming into SIPA, and it was definitely kind of a tough learning curve, but it is completely feasible to do. So if you're going, hey, I was an English or a political science major and writing and debate is really more my forte, and I'm terrified of these economics requirements, they're tricky, but they're definitely feasible. And I truly did not even take a single econ class and then went straight into the SIPA requirements and I figured it out. So don't let it deter you. It is definitely doable. There's a lot of support. There's student tutoring. Professors here are great. So don't worry about it.
Other questions? Big or small? While you're gathering your thoughts, I'm going to take a second. I'm going to drop the course approval form. This is what you would fill out formally in your junior year. It's due mid-January to Professor Ananat for a final review to make sure that you're on track to be able to fit in all of the requirements, both for your Barnard degree and to be able to get started in year 4 on your SIPA degree. You can certainly take a look at it ahead of time and fill it out sort of as you go along. And then, as I said, officially submit it in your junior year. Preferably, we want it to include your fall of junior year, which is why it's due in mid-January. And then once Professor Ananat has approved it, then you officially can submit your application to SIPA. The SIPA application, I'm correct, opens, when does it open? Like in the fall each year?
It opens in the fall, and it's usually, this year it was due February 5th. It's usually due around the same time every year.
You can go in the fall, you can create an account, you can start working and see all the requirements, come, as I mentioned, come to Beyond Barnard and reach out to other advisors to help put your application together, but you can't formally submit your application until you've been cleared by Professor Ananat, and we're certain. And the goal there is to just assess and make sure that what you're planning is feasible and which courses you're planning to double count, etc. So it's just an extra process that we have found over the last couple of years has been really helpful in making that final decision whether you're going to be able to manage the workload and get and reach your goals. So,
and just a couple notes on that, if I may. One is you certainly should go ahead and work on your SIPA application before you get the final approval from me. You can also always turn in this course approval form to me earlier if you just want to make sure that you have all your ducks in a row before you start working on your application. But if you turn in your course approval form, near the deadline, and then I'm working through everybody's forms and I'm having a back and forth with folks about, well, this plan isn't going to work, but I think if you tweak it in this way, then we can make that work. You don't want to be having that conversation with me in mid to late January and then waiting for my approval before you start working on your application to SIPA that's due at the beginning of February. Don't do that. If you want to have my approval before you start working on the application, then go ahead and talk to me about approval earlier. And if you want to use the full timeline, then be working on them at the same time. And just to give you a sense of the sorts of things that we're looking at there, we're making sure, because you're taking 12 credits at SIPA in each of the 2 semesters of your 4th year, that really only leaves room to be taking 1 class at Barnard each semester of your 4th year. And now I know many of you will say, because you are high achieving, go-getter students. I've been taking more than 15 credits. And I hear that, but I would ask you, if you had a cousin or a friend who was in high school and had been very high achieving, and their plan was to take, 20 credits their first semester at Barnard, because after all, they've been very high achieving all along, I think you would probably suggest to them, hey, quality over quantity. You want to make sure you do really well in your first semester at Barnard. And there's a big level up that happens between high school and college. So you don't want to overload yourself and not set yourself up for success. And you can always, add more classes later if things are going well, but you don't want to overcommit yourself and end up in trouble. And I'm going to say the same thing to you when you tell me that you can take 18, 20 credits your first semester at SIPA. I'm going to say, no, I don't think that that's a good plan. If you get in there and everything's going great, then you can go ahead and add classes, but we're not going to have you start SIPA with the only way that you can graduate on time from Barnard is if you're taking an overload and you're managing graduate school classes at the same time that you're taking an above recommended course load. So we're going to want you to have a plan over the next couple of years that involves there only being 2 Barnard classes left that you still need to take your first year at SIPA, your 4th year at Barnard. And that's typically going to be either 2 capstone classes for your major, a senior thesis that takes 2 semesters, a senior seminar, and another advanced elective, depending on what the arrangement is. Or sometimes I have students who have taken all of their major requirements, they're juniors. So I'm talking to them, as they're entering their 2nd semester of junior year, and they're going to take their last senior requirement then, or they only have 1 senior requirement that's going to be left their 4th year for their major, but they have that one, lab science class that they haven't taken, or that one language class or something like that. So they have some general education requirement or a thinking locally requirement, et cetera, that's still left. And so as long as it's just going to be 2 classes, it doesn't that you need in order to meet your requirements for graduating from Barnard. It doesn't matter which 2 classes those are. It's just typically those are 2 senior requirements. And then sometimes we do find a little bit of wiggle room where, oh, there's a class at SIPA. I actually have 3 classes left to take from my major, but my major is political science or my major is econ, and there's a class that I want to take at SIPA that can also count for my major. And here is my letter from my major advisor or the chair of my major department saying that this is an acceptable class to meet that. There are some things we can work out if it turns out you need 3 classes, et cetera, things like that. Sometimes a class at SIPA will count for thinking locally, or one of those other requirements, right? But those are all the sorts of conversations that we end up having to make sure that everything is set up, because we never want anyone to enter the SIPA 4+1 and then not actually be on track to graduate on time from Barnard, because that's not a great outcome for anyone. And the big part of this process is making sure that every single Barnard student who gets admitted to the 4+1 is set up for success. So that's my role, and why we want to have conversations ahead of time and as much advanced planning as we can.
Great, thank you.
And I'll drop my my office hours. So I have dedicated SIPA planning office hours to discuss these very things monthly, and they are during the academic year, and they are on Calendly, and this is the link for them. My next ones are May 9th or something like that. You should be able to see it.
We have a question. Do students in the 4+1 ever double major in their undergraduate degree? So I'd say yes, because Barnard students have double majors and minors and all sorts of things. I would say the same thing about that as I say about if you want to work in studying abroad. I just would reemphasize the message Professor Ananat gave. you need to plan early, you need to plan often. So if you are thinking about 2 majors, if you're thinking about studying abroad, you just need to plan more carefully and start looking at that sheet early on and talking to your advisor, your major advisor, once you have one, the department chair. You want to make sure that you're not counting, for instance, on a single course that's only offered in spring, and all of a sudden you find out that it's not going to be offered in the spring, or it's going to be offered in the fall instead. That's the kind of thing you need to look out for when you've got those extra things like an additional major or a study abroad plan. So plan early, plan often, come talk to us, ask questions, we'll work it through.
I can take the financial aid question. And I'm also putting my meeting link in the chat. Although I recommend that I'm not the first person that you meet, but maybe the second or third after speaking with Barnard, particularly beyond Barnard advisors first. So how does financial aid work with the 4+1? So for your 4th year at Barnard / your first year at SIPA, you are receiving your regular whatever financial aid that you're receiving already from Barnard. You're in residence at Barnard, you're still a Barnard student. For your 5th year, you, along with many of our SIPA 2nd year students, you would be applying for assistantships in the spring of your 1st year. And those would be TA-ships, research assistantships, and other types of work that you would do in the 2nd year. And so that's the funding that is available to the 4+1 students in that 5th year. There isn't any additional financial aid at this time.
That's real important. None of us are, none of us are in the position of being able to give specific financial advice, but we are very careful always with any 4+1 student to talk through the financial implications. In general, graduate school programs are more expensive per credit or otherwise than undergraduate, and there is much less financial aid, scholarship aid available in general. So you want to be talking that through with anybody in your life, parents or otherwise, who are, giving you financial support, to talk about the implications of that. The savings comes in with the 4+1 because of what Dean Yee said about the fact that you are still a Barnard student in year 4. So basically you are paying Barnard prices and receiving, if you're eligible, Barnard financial aid for up to 24 credits that year, and that's a huge savings. But it doesn't change the fact that 5th year you are paying, SIPA prices. So you need to have that discussion. Certainly, many students, consider, even if you've not considered student loans for your undergraduate years, many students do consider and go on to take out loans for that single 5th year. And there, again, we don't directly advise on that, but what we have you think about is the return on investment. Taking that loan, doing some projections about, what you plan to do after you graduate and how it would work out in terms of paying off those loans. So again, no direct advice from us, but a general advice to think about that, talk through, run the numbers with people that are, on your financial team, as it were. So yes, a couple people have had to leave. Feel free if you need to go. Any other questions at this point? Dean Byrne, we haven't had a chance to hear from you. I don't know if you have any words of wisdom at this juncture.
No, I would just say I did put in the chat earlier that if any of you are interested in coming to an upcoming event at SIPA, we would welcome you to attend our upcoming SIPA Speaks event this Thursday, featuring one of our current students speaking on her experience growing up in North Korea and then later leaving the country, which I think will be a really interesting talk. And then I would encourage you all, if you are interested in the 5-year program, please do follow up regarding your eligibility. To the earlier question about taking economics coursework, I would just mention that in the application to the program itself, you have an opportunity to submit a quantitative resume along with your professional resume. And so this is an opportunity for you to highlight any quantitative coursework that you've done at Columbia or elsewhere. And you can use that as a chance to highlight work that you may have done with internships or jobs that you've held where you've completed some quantitative component as well, because it is challenging for us to assess quantitative abilities as we don't require the GRE as part of the application process. And so barring having quantitative coursework on your transcript, it can be a little bit challenging to make that assessment. So I would use that as another chance to highlight those skills that you may have.
Thank you, everybody. See any additional questions? So good luck with everything. Good luck with finals, and come see us.
Thank you. Thank you, Wes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.